Hey there, we're the West Lafayette Pirates and welcome to the show. We're here to share thoughts on Northwestern athletics and college sports with thoughts and analysis from the visceral to the statistical. We run our tailgate with the red pirate flag flying high above as we give no quarter, especially the fourth. I'm Sam Walter.
I'm John Lacombe.
And I'm Eric Skoskauspo.
Well, guys, coming off Penn State, Northwestern gets a home game against Purdue.
Hooray!
Penn State of the Midwest, they call them. Yeah, I think.
I mean, sure. It's actually kind of weird to try to preview Purdue because, it's an entirely new team. So I'm going to be very interested to hear, just top to bottom, they were so bad last year. Beyond bad. It is a whole new team. John, what do they have on D?
Yeah, they sure were. And unfortunately, we were all watching. And when we went to overtime versus this dumpster fire of a football team, even though we won, it felt like the season was bottoming out because we knew what that Purdue team was. And yeah, they all count. Yeah.
Can I just piggyback on that real quick?
Yeah.
So Purdue's defense gave up 40 points a game last year.
Correct.
Which is the worst in living memory, probably. But compared to the last 7 years, when they averaged roughly 30 points a game, it's 10 points worse on defense.
Yeah,
on offense.
Yeah.
On offense, they scored 15.8 points per game, which is down from a 6 or 7 year average of roughly 25. So 10 fewer points per game on defense, or 10 fewer points per game on offense, and 10 additional points per game on defense. That's a 20-point per game swing for Purdue in 2025.
And what's wild is you've got two of those games, Indiana State where they put up 49 and Illinois where they put up 49, completely skewing those numbers.
Yeah, and when we finally get to Illinois, you'll realize that Purdue somehow putting up those stats isn't the craziest thing in the world against the Illinois Fighting Illini defense, but
OT helped.
Yeah. Right. They all, wins are wins, but again, for Scuzz and I having to go back and dig into the stats on this team, time has not done us any favors as we have to remind ourselves, what it took to beat that team. And yeah, on the defensive side, Scuzz touched on it. This is one of the worst units this conference will ever see. And we were here for the Kevin Wilson Indiana years. It's hard to overstate how horrific this defense was.
We were here for the Jim O'Neill Northwestern.
Right. Scuzz mentioned the 40 points a game. This was the worst total defense in the conference by 60 yards. Worst pass defense in the conference, worst run defense in the conference. And that doesn't even cover it because the 40 points a game doesn't even cover it. Every one of their last 8 opponents, other than us and Michigan State, almost scored an average of 50 points a game against Purdue. You can't quit on a season. And really on the Ryan Walters era at Purdue, harder than Purdue's defense did down the stretch here. It's funny, though, we've talked about this a little bit in our previews so far this year. It's funny to look back at that era and think about culture, defensive culture. Because we specifically had this discussion when we were previewing Purdue last year. And Scuzz, I remember, specifically touched on it, which was don't sleep on this impressive pedigree of the transfers that Purdue was bringing in defensively from all of these big name schools. And then you factor in Walters is such a rising star as a thought of as a defensive mind, at least everything prior to when he arrived at West Lafayette. And then, of course, it turned out that the team with a massive transfer influx that mined all of the defensive gold last year in the state of Indiana was the University of Indiana, or Indiana University, not Purdue. And it's easy to say that Curt Cignetti had the magic and Ryan Walters didn't. But then we could have said the same thing about Wisconsin a couple years ago, too, because they hired a respected defensive mind in Luke Fickell, and they had a hell of a better existing defensive culture than Purdue or Indiana did, and they're a defensive mess right now. So I guess nothing is ever for certain. But I guess the bottom line for Purdue is when it started going south, man, it sure as hell kept heading in that direction. And now the head coach of Purdue is Barry Odom, and his DC is Mike Schur. And this dude is quite young. He's Zach Lujan young. He's 31 years old.
Wait,
and he's
Mike
got
Schur isn't like the writer of.
it's Scherer.
Oh,
Scherer,
okay.
not sure. He's got this really short career arc as a defensive coordinator, just a couple of years, but it's pointed way up. So he was the DC at UNLV for 2 years. In year one, UNLV's defense was bad. In year two, they were incredible. So think of it this way: UNLV almost gave up half as many points a game last year as Purdue did. So it's pretty obvious why they made the switch and why they brought these guys in. And you can remember I just talked about this roulette wheel of transfers and culture. And Sam mentioned this, alluded to it earlier. Purdue is basically going to try to pull off a carbon copy of what Cignetti pulled off up the road in Bloomington. It is just transfer palooza here. But if you remember how Cignetti brought in all of those James Madison guys with him, Purdue is bringing in a ton of UNLV guys. But it's UNLV and a million other places. This defense is basically only going to be playing guys who came from somewhere else. UNLV, Memphis, BYU, Boston College, Akron, Arkansas State, North Texas. I could go on. It's hard for me to even make any sense of it. I'm not going to try to make any sense of it. Like, I didn't just list you a murderer's row of schools. All of those dudes are going to play at least a little bit. Could it work? I mean, I guess. But saying that this strategy in general works is kind of like saying that every big quarterback with a strong arm is going to be good because Josh Allen is good.
Because I was thinking about that same comparison. I've heard others make it too, and I think Cignetti's the most recent example who had success turning over his roster. Deion Sanders turned over his roster quite famously. That didn't go nearly as well. I think the better comp is actually Mel Tucker. You remember in 2021, Michigan State had like wholesale transfer. Now it wasn't 50 guys like Purdue is bringing in this year, but he was stitching together a brand new team. And I guess I hear you. The UNLV component, it just doesn't feel as big as the James Madison. Where, I mean, Cignetti brought his staff, and like 2/3 of those transfers last year to Indiana were coming from JMU, right?
Yeah, and he's Kurt Cignetti.
Yeah. He had years of success built up at JMU.
Yeah, like, that's the thing, is now everyone's going to be like, well, Kurt Cignetti did it. Yeah, because he's Kurt Cignetti. You're not. We talked about this. We'll talk about it a little bit more in our previews down the road. Do you know 2 of the top 3 total defenses in the Big Ten this past year were coached by Kurt Cignetti disciples? And it's like, what is it, Corey Heatherman at Minnesota, and then Haynes at Indiana. It's like Kurt Cignetti's like a coaching god. What he does probably isn't going to work for you. And again, you look at everything Purdue's done here. Most of the time when you do this, especially in Purdue in the shape that they're in, what you get in season 1 is a hot, steaming mess. And Purdue, again, like, it was basically a fire sale. I mean, we all know we got Yanni Karlaftis. He may start at linebacker for them. He was arguably their second best defensive player, but it was a massive drop from Dylan Thieneman as their number 1 defensive player. Dylan Thieneman was by far their best defensive player, and he transferred out to Oregon. So, like, this Purdue team, you could argue, had better players last year when they were an absolute dumpster fire. So, yeah, I guess I would say, regardless, with all this stuff they're going to try, by the time we get to Purdue on our schedule, we're going to know if they have anything here. They do have a defensive-minded coaching staff, and they do have an ascendant, exciting young defensive mind. But they had all of these things 2 years ago, and we saw how it went. So, like, I'm not exactly optimistic on this team.
So, Scuzz, when I look through the offense, seeing a lot of new faces there as well, but there is one name that I see that not loving the fact that Devin Mockabee is back.
Yeah, I think unlike the defense, who lost their best player in Thieneman, as John, you just mentioned, the offense retained their best player in Devin Mockabee, and I think there is some reason for hope that this transfer strategy can work on offense. And this is in part why I like the Mel Tucker comp a little bit better than Cignetti, because Tucker did this 2 years in a row at Michigan State. And in year 1, it worked great, in large part because he had Kenneth Walker Jr. And in year 2, it was a total train wreck. So, this is a coin flip. Whereas Cignetti was bringing a lot of known commodities with him to Indiana and brought in a 4-year starting quarterback to, helm the offense. This is much more of a coin flip here at Purdue this year with what Odom's brought in. So after a surprising 2023, when the sudden emergence of Devin Mockabee really kind of blunted what we all thought was an inevitable post-Jeff Brom drop-off for Purdue's offense, 2024 was a catastrophe. I already mentioned the 15.8 points per game, 299 yards per game. They didn't even average 300 yards per game on offense. They declined in every possible way. But most surprising was the run game. They had Mockabee and 4 returning starters in the offensive line. They had a bevy of transfers. This was in addition to the defensive guys coming over from Georgia. They had a couple wide receivers coming from Georgia, and then Hudson Card coming from Texas, and Mockabee plus these offensive linemen. I was like, hey, they might have something here. Graham Harrell's entering year 2, like maybe a little bit of an up and coming offensive mind, etc. We'll see what happens. But instead, an experienced offensive line, a stud running back, a reasonably pedigreed quarterback, and a guy people thought was a decent offensive coach. They dropped 44 yards per game in rushing. They had a 33% increase in sacks allowed. I mean, it was a total catastrophe. And I know I've mentioned Graham Harrell a couple times. He got fired like 4 games into the year, which maybe also, maybe that they had exacerbated some of the fall off, but like, it's crazy. What's wild, because so many of these other teams, when they have a drop, it's completion percentage went down because they switched quarterbacks, or they weren't able to stretch the field, or they just weren't able to get generate the yards per carry because of the O-line wasn't getting pushed, etc. This was not an efficiency problem for Purdue. They very simply ran way fewer plays. In 2023, they ran 850 offensive plays from scrimmage. Last year, 673.
Wow.
And like, I was joking about that 20-point swing from 23 to 24 in terms of 10 worse on the offense, 10 worse on the defense. These things are this is like a death spiral, right? When your offense can't stay on the field and your defense can't get off the field, they exacerbate each other. The offensive third down conversion rate dropped from 35% to 28%. They were 130th in FBS. Purdue also fumbled the ball 14 times last season, which is not a tremendous amount. We fumbled the ball 15 times. The problem is that they lost 10 of those fumbles, which is just statistically improbable. A couple more, thrown interceptions than the year before, and the bad defense that you already heard about. It all added up to like a negative 14 turnover ratio after being -4 combined over the prior 4 years. Like everything possible went bad for them. So in some ways, like they almost have to bounce back. But there are some really tangible reasons for hope. And the first one is Mockabee. It is weird because he really underperformed last year. He only had 4 touchdowns at 690 yards. I think some of that is they just couldn't stay on the field. They were in third and long a lot. He still averaged 5 yards per carry. He was not hurt. I really tried to explore this. Like, did he have an injury? Like, what was going on? He did not have any injuries. He lost 0 fumbles. All his totals were down, but his averages were okay. He could bounce back in a major way this year if they can put together the offensive line. And to that point, that was where that's where the transfer talent starts to come in. So they lost all 5 starting offensive linemen and their tight end and most of the receivers, but they were also really bad last year. So this might be addition by subtraction. I don't know. 4 of the likely starting 5 offensive linemen are from the SEC or Notre Dame, and the 5th guy has played on Team Canada for whatever that's worth. It's a huge cliff to the second unit, though. So I mean, like, depth is far and away their biggest weakness. Like, one guy goes down on that O-line, and they have big problems. But this also might be a case of like anything is better than what they had last year. In the receiver room, they've got 2 guys coming from USC. This is like 2 years worth of transfers, right? So 2 guys from USC, 2 guys from Georgia, a UCF receiver, a West Virginia receiver, a K-State receiver. There's some additional depth. Nitro Tuggle being the biggest name guy coming from Georgia. He's the one they're most excited about.
How did they get a guy to transfer there from Georgia?
I don't know.
Don't understand.
I don't understand either. It's kind of this weird 2-year trend, even with the coaching staff change. So I whatever it is, there is some athletic talent in the receiver room for what that's worth. I think it's important to call out this is a far cry from the halcyon days of Purdue wide receivers under Jeff Brom. When they were running David Bell out there and they had a
Rondell Moore. Yeah.
Rondell Moore. Yeah. This is not that, but they might have something more to work with than they did last year. I mean, their tight end, Max Clare, the transfer from, I think, Minnesota, was their best receiver last year with about 700 yards and 4 TDs. So maybe there's something. I think probably, the biggest piece, of course, is the coaching. So last year, Graham Harrell, I mentioned this, he was fired 4 games into the season. The offense was struggling, but I feel like canning him so early can't have helped. And maybe that explains some of the Maccabee drop-off and why he just wasn't able to generate more yards. After being named head coach, Barry Odom went out and hired his former OC/O-line coach from Mizzou, Josh Henson. And he hired Josh away from USC, where he had the same role. That's a little strange, especially when you read all the articles about Josh Henson and USC and the offense there and Lincoln Riley, and it's a lot of talk about they underperformed, the offensive line wasn't great, yada yada yada. I'm here to tell you the USC offensive line actually did pretty good last year, 15 sacks allowed after 30 plus the prior 2 years. Wow. Woody Marks ran for a gajillion yards. I think there's some other stuff that went on.
Not cart before the horse, but offense wasn't USC's problem.
I know it wasn't, right? So it is strange. Everybody's kind of shitting on Josh Henson and kind of implying that USC was please leave, and Barry Odom swept him and hired him away so they didn't have to fire him. Honestly, for Purdue, and that might all be true, but from the purely Purdue perspective, this feels like a coup. You had a guy that was working in a high-level offense. He's familiar with Odom and vice versa. Woody Marks, he produced an 1,100-yard rusher last year. They had an incredibly successful running game when these guys were together at Mizzou as well. So they have. I kind of said this last year, but I'm going to say it again. Henson plus Maccabee plus this incoming offensive line talent, it needs to gel, but it's a great place to build from. It's a lot better than whatever they had last year.
I think I'm almost wondering, Scuzz, you can kind of step back and say this with their offensive line coach, right? He's got a relationship with Odom, and what he's probably thinking is get out ahead of the pitchforks,
yes.
Right?
Yeah.
You can, if you're at USC right now, you're definitely considering leaving on your own terms if you can get a lifeboat right now.
That is such a good point, that invitation to leave he might have been thank goodness.
Yeah.
But this is where the rubber meets the road at the quarterback position. This is the major question for Purdue this year. So, and this is the biggest difference from whatever Cignetti was cooking with at Indiana last year. And that is that Ryan Brown is returning to Purdue after spending the spring with Bill Belichick in Chapel Hill. They have brought in Malachi Singleton from Arkansas as a transfer. There's also a guy that transferred in from Washington State. Barry Odom's kid Garrett is an incoming freshman. This quarterback room is not stacked with any proven talent. Now we saw.
You don't think that Brown picked up some major wisdom from Bill Belichick in those 2 months that he was?
Shit, this guy might be Tom Brady part 2. I don't know.
Yeah.
So to be fair, Brown, we have seen firsthand, Brown can be a dual threat. He put the screws to us a little bit 2 years ago. Singleton was a really well-regarded dual threat prospect coming out of high school. So they have athleticism and some talent in their quarterback room. It is totally unproven. It is totally raw. It has never spent any time working with anybody else on the team, minus the couple times that Brown got into a game with Maccabee last year. But it does start to create a picture of what this offense is going to look like. Now, I've heard some people talk about like, oh yeah, Purdue's going back to the air raid, which is a couple of years ago we had this funny like, oh, Wisconsin's going air raid and Purdue's going air raid with their new coaching staffs, and it's kind of weird. This is a team that is going to be heavily focused on running the ball with Maccabee and a mobile quarterback. UNLV's QB ran for like 900 yards last year. That's what this offense is going to look like. You look at the talent that's in the room. They're going to run, and then see what that can unlock in the passing game as a result. And I don't like the equation does not work with the defensive talent and the skill position talent at the receiver position, et cetera. Like the equation does not work for them to be a good offense in this vein. But I think that if the coaching is good, if the O-line can gel a little bit, if Maccabee can regain some of his talent, I realize this is a lot of ifs, but they won't be good, but I think Purdue's offense is going to be really annoying to play and hard to keep down. They're just going to suck to play. It's going to be like a pistol formation, Maccabee coming downhill, quarterback running left, quarterback running right, like just annoying. That's going to require a lot of tenacity from a defense. Thankfully, we have a great defensive line. We're well positioned to match up and contain this offense next year, but for Purdue's sake, I think, they have a chance to annoy some folks and maybe chalk up more than one win in 2025.
If you or a loved one is seriously injured by someone else's negligence, hire Kent Simpson of the Simpson Law Group. After over a decade prosecuting murder cases in Chicago, Simpson opened his own firm focused on wrongful death and personal injury cases. He specializes in car, truck, motorcycle, boat, and other transportation accidents, as well as construction accidents, medical negligence, slip and falls, product liability, and more. Millions recovered for clients, no fee unless he wins. The Simpson Law Group, compassion, empathy, and vigorous advocacy. Go to simpsonlawgroup.com or call 312-332-2107 for a free consultation, and go Cats. Well, in order to do that, this is their schedule that they're running through. Opening up the year at home against Ball State and Southern Illinois. Southern Cal then comes in on September 13th. Then they travel to Notre Dame, just heading up the road to South Bend. They get a bye week, come home to play Illinois. Then they hit the road again, heading to Minnesota and Northwestern in back-to-back weeks. They're then home for Rutgers, at Michigan, home for Ohio State, at Washington, and then they get a bye week before they are home for Indiana.
Indiana, Ohio State, Michigan, Minnesota, Illinois, Notre Dame, USC.
I mean,
that's tough.
I mean, this schedule is, you could say horrific, but horrific for what? Like Purdue's going to go 3-9. Purdue's going to go 3-9 here. Like there's no whatever. Odom.
3?
Find me number 4.
Find me number 3.
What's number 3?
I guess Rutgers at homecoming.
Rutgers at home is the one that I would circle. I think that's their third. It's certainly not guaranteed. Rutgers has Kaliakmanis, right?
I like Rutgers.
Yeah, and again, all of their other iffy games, all their maybes are on the road. Minnesota,
yeah.
Northwestern, Washington, if I were them, I'd be circling Northwestern. But we're stacked with defensive linemen who've beaten that team twice. Our defense has done plenty fine against them. It's, our offense just couldn't get out of its own way in West Lafayette last year. Preston Stone, this is very much a year one team. If I was Purdue, I'd be like, can we just rest Maccabee for 1 year? Maccabee, if we throw some NIL money at you, why don't you just chill for a year? We'll see what we have. We'll try to build something. Because I don't know. I for 100% believe that Scott said, he is their thing, and they are going to try to go on the ground, and he's a great player, and they're gonna make as much hay with him as they can. And if you look at 4 of their first 5 games, USC and Illinois have crappy run defenses. Maccabee can get yards against those teams. Those teams are also going to score 1 billion points against Purdue. And then Notre Dame, Minnesota, Michigan, Ohio State, Indiana, those defenses. those are awesome defenses. Like, it's disrespectful to them to be like, this Purdue collection of spare parts can do things. Like, I don't think that's going to happen at all. Notre Dame erased Purdue last year, and I know it's a completely different team, but again, who cares at the end of the day? Like, if I'm Purdue, like if I'm Odom, like you're getting to throw away year one here. Like, you're trying to build something, like Scuzz said. Like, you got this new O-line coordinator. You're trying to develop something there. Maybe you build a little positive offensive line momentum, find some stability there. You have all these UNLV transfers. Maybe you start to build something. You build a new defensive scheme or whatever. Like, this is a bridge year. I think they're going to go 3-9, and I don't think it's really going to make too much of a difference one way or another.
It is so wild. It is so wild to me that this USC game is the CBS afternoon slot.
The which game?
CBS again. The USC game. It's already
CBS ain't got a lot going on, Sammy.
No, fair. But I mean, they're plugging that into the national broadcast slate. It's weird.
Mean, this is like NBC broadcasting Notre Dame Purdue. Like, CBS ain't got much else. They've lost the SEC.
The Notre Dame one makes sense because it's
their home network.
At Notre Dame.
Yeah. I'm risking doing the same thing I did with Ryan Walters, but I'm looking at Barry Odom and thinking Barry Odom's a really good coach. I don't know why in my head Barry Odom was a lot older than he is in real life. He's only like 42.
Wait, yeah, they have a really young coaching staff.
Yeah, he's really young.
Yep.
Wow.
They're right.
Yeah.
I thought he was like 60.
Yeah,
I was literally thinking in my head, like, oh, maybe Josh Henson is thinking he could be like the heir apparent to Barry Odom after he retires in 2 seasons. And I'm like, wait, what? He's 40s?
Well, again,
but Barry Odom's really good, and he had proven success at Mizzou, proven success at UNLV. He should, like, all other things being equal, he should improve this team. He should make them better over the next 2 to 3 seasons. But whether or not he can overcome like the Purdue of it, because this has been a place where coaches go to die for several cycles now. We'll see. I don't know.
Yeah. I was just going through there. You can count 7 teams on Purdue's schedule who are awesome at something. Like, and I didn't include us in that group. And I didn't include Washington in that group either. And again, they're at Washington and they're at Northwestern. And again, like, you're really asking a lot for like all of these teams that do one thing phenomenally well, if not multiple things on both sides of the ball phenomenally well, and then gifting them Purdue. Like, again, like I mean, you can look at that crazy Illinois Purdue game last year and be like, Illinois was just like wet garbage and couldn't defend. But you can also be like, Luke Altmaier wasn't losing that football game, not against that shit defense. So, like, I think, like, again, like, there's no pressure here. Like, again, like, I think Maccabee will have a good year. I think he will make them competitive, at least offensively in a couple of games. And I think they're going to go 3-9. And they're just going to turn the page.
2025 Purdue football. Awesome at nothing. Boiler up.
Yeah.
Anything else to mention about the Boilermakers?
No, again, I'll come back to, like, Scuzz mapped it out, right? They're going to use Brown's mobility and Maccabee's leverage, and they're just going to try to establish the run game against us. And we've had trouble with teams like that in the past. We've also beaten, like, again, this defensive line have all beaten Purdue twice. Once at home, once on the road. They've seen plenty of Brown. They know exactly what they're getting here. I have a lot of faith in our ability to win this one.
I just have like a funny, so I think y'all have been listening for a long time know that I'm an annual subscriber to the Phil Steele tome of college football. It's where I dig for a lot of stats and details about the teams, etc. There is something very amusing on the Purdue page this year, because on every team capsule, and there's like 2 pages for every team in this tome, Phil has a little spot for the incoming recruits, the incoming high school recruits, and Purdue only has 12. So only half of that box is filled, and he had to put a giant Purdue logo in the other half, which is not the case on any other team capsule in this entire flippin' magazine, and it's just really funny when those sorts of things happen.
Like
can't have white space.
It's the
Put a big
magazine
P in there.
It's the magazine equivalent of Purdue just tarping off half their stadium with a giant P, which
Yes,
is also
that-
on the table very
That
much.
is exactly it.
Yeah.
Well, we'll go ahead and leave it there for tonight. Head to our website, westlawpirates.com, where you can leave comments and questions. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Blue Sky, all of them at Westlaw Pirates. And you can always email us, westlawpirates@gmail.com. Tune in next time as we give our visceral and statistical views on Northwestern athletics. And look for us in the West Tech lot of Martin Stadium flying the red pirate flag, because we give no quarter, especially the fourth. For John Lacombe and Eric Skasby, I'm Sam Walter. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time.